Welcome back to A Wrap. Today we're going to look at a complex political story involving claims about a U.S. military operation, alleged violations of international law, and disagreements between political figures and members of Congress. I will try to present this as neutrally and factually as possible, relying only on statements that have been publicly reported and labeling things clearly as claims, allegations, or questions where needed. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you find value in careful, neutral explanations like this. Recently, commentary in U.S. politics has focused on a reported closed-door briefing involving a U.S. admiral and members of Congress. According to Representative Jim Himes, what he heard in that session was extremely concerning. Some public commentators have suggested that these concerns relate to whether certain U.S. military actions against boats in the Caribbean were consistent with the laws of armed conflict. Jim Himes stated that, based on what he saw, there were actions that appeared to show the U.S. military attacking individuals who were already in a shipwreck condition. Under U.S. Department of Defense manuals, an attack on shipwreck personnel is generally described as an impermissible action under the law of armed conflict. Himes emphasized that his concern came from a specific example in the manual, not from political preference. He also noted that the public had not yet been shown the footage, though he believed that Americans would eventually see it, adding that context would be important for interpreting what happened. Some observers are asking why the footage has not been released. Others note that militaries often withhold certain details during ongoing operations, citing intelligence concerns or classification rules. Still, critics ask whether transparency should be greater, especially if the actions could raise serious legal questions. At this stage, the existence of footage and what it clearly proves remain matters of political discussion, not independently verified conclusions. This debate also intersects with public comments by former President Donald Trump. He has stated that his intention was to have the boats knocked out, referring to the vessels allegedly used for criminal purposes. In an interview, when asked whether he supported the killing of survivors, Trump responded that he supported knocking out the boats and targeting those piloting them, whom he accused of attempting to harm Americans. The specific legal interpretation of such statements, however, depends on factual details that are not fully public. If you're finding this breakdown useful, please like the video and subscribe for more neutral explanatory content. Another part of the discussion is the question of drugs. Some journalists and commentators asked whether authorities had publicly confirmed what type of drugs, if any, were on these vessels, or whether the people operating them were verifiably involved in major drug trafficking. It's common that operational details are classified, but the lack of public evidence has raised debate. Critics argue that without confirmed, specific information, the justification for lethal force may be difficult to evaluate under international law. Supporters argue that intelligence services may have information that cannot be shared publicly, and that counter-trafficking operations often involve classified intelligence. There has also been discussion about cases of extradition and pardons. Some commentators have compared alleged actions at sea during recent years with earlier decisions by various administrations regarding individuals accused of running cartels. However, those comparisons often mix different administrations and legal circumstances. Whether a particular pardon or conviction is relevant to current military actions depends on timelines and legal documentation, and those details can be complex. A neutral observation is that critics are questioning the consistency of U.S. policy, while supporters say each case has different legal standards and evidence. Republican Representative Mike Turner has also expressed concerns, noting that some members of the Armed Services Committee believe they are not receiving enough information from the Pentagon. Turner has pointed out that proposed legislation would increase reporting requirements. He raised the issue that individuals targeted at sea, if captured and convicted, might face prison rather than capital punishment, implying that using lethal force could be disproportionate if the legal threshold for deadly force is not met. It is important to underline that these are questions being raised in Congress, not settled legal conclusions. Some political commentators have expressed surprise that a Republican member raised these concerns publicly, interpreting this as evidence of the seriousness of the issue. Again, that is a commentary point, not a verified fact about guilt or illegality. These statements show internal debate rather than a unified position. This debate has also become part of wider arguments about drug trafficking routes. Some panel discussions on U.S. television questioned whether fentanyl and other drugs primarily come through Mexico rather than Venezuela. According to many official U.S. government reports, a significant portion of fentanyl entering the United States originates from precursors produced abroad and trafficked primarily through Mexico. That said, global trafficking networks are complex and routes can vary. Claims that a particular country is or is not a major route should be based on official data rather than partisan argument. The important point is that different participants in these debates are presenting different interpretations, and viewers should look to official, up-to-date sources for verification. If you appreciate careful fact-checking and neutral wording, please tap like and consider subscribing so more people can access balanced explanations. Some political commentators have speculated that certain actions might be connected to broader foreign policy goals, including policy toward Venezuela and issues related to oil. These speculations are political opinions, not confirmed facts. Neutral reporting should separate what has been officially stated from what commentators speculate might be the underlying motive. At present, there is no publicly confirmed evidence that U.S. policy on maritime interdictions is directly tied to plans to invade any country. Those claims should be treated as hypotheses or criticism, not established truth. Another dimension raised in the discussion relates to journalism and access. Some commentators criticized what they describe as the current Pentagon press environment, claiming that journalists are now more restricted and receive less direct access to officials than in the past. Others say that such restrictions are normal during sensitive operations. One former Pentagon press official described previous press behaviors as intrusive. Critics respond that persistent questioning is part of journalism in a democratic society. These are conflicting perspectives about press freedom and government transparency.